Hello, 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 and welcome back to Kim Talks Resilience. I'm your host, Kim Hayden, and I am so grateful that you're taking a moment of your time to share it with us, to listen and lean into our incredible resilient community. What is Kim Talks Resilience? Well, if this is your first time here, let me share a little bit about what we do here. My entire goal is to interview leading women, women from around the world who are entrepreneurs, coaches, speakers, authors, and small business owners. These women are stepping out in front and they are saying, hey, I'm here to serve. These women who are leading by example, they are modeling what we should be doing. And that is what we do here at Kim Talks Resilience. We bring these women onto our stage and we give them a moment that you share with us so we can help lead and inspire women around the world. So today's guest, you know what? Talking about champions. This gal has it in spades. Ann-Marie Flinn is the president and founder of Champion Foundational Change Agency. For over 30 years, Ann-Marie has been an authority on creating optimum performance, greater productivity, and higher prosperity by implementing a champion mindset. We're going to edit that in post too. For over 30 years, Ann-Marie has been an authority in creating optimum performance, greater productivity, and higher prosperity by implementing a champion mindset. Ann-Marie's vision is to be a worldwide champion of change, to touch the lives of thousands of people by bringing out the champion inside and to facilitate belief and inspiration through a champion mindset. Ann-Marie believes in the power of mind. Ann-Marie is a top ranked international athlete, Atlantic Canada's first female military scuba diver, a mom, and a business owner. Ann-Marie embodies a passion that makes a difference in the lives of women to embrace and empower physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well being. Let's bring Ann-Marie in. Can you tell it's early here, Ann? Anne-Marie, I appreciate you moving times around. It's actually what? It's you're 3 hours
It's
ahead.
10:30 here.
Yeah,
Yes.
so you're 3 hours ahead. Awesome. So we're not, and you're probably a 5 a.m.er. Are you a 5 a.m.er? Do you get up at 5
Usually,
a.m. and
yes.
yeah?
You know what? Actually, I've been waking up at like 3 a.m. these days, and my mind is just going, wow, I have this idea, and I've got this idea, and I've got this idea. And one of the things I always tell any of my clients or organizations, like just write it down, put it in a junk journal, and get it out of your head so you can rest easy. So that's what I was doing at 3 this morning. Just had all these different ideas that I wanted to jot down, and then got up at 5. Yes.
Oh, see, that's menopause for me. I am hitting menopause hard, and it is like, 3 a.m. and I'm up for about 30 minutes. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I wanted to research that. And I start researching, I write some notes down, and then I'm back to bed for a few hours. So,
Yeah, yeah,
Anne
exactly.
Marie, I'm really actually, I love I have a real interest in the first military scuba diver. That is crazy cool. Um,
Yeah.
I would love to go a little bit through who you are and what
Mhm.
brings you to what you do today.
Well, and it's interesting. I always like to talk about who I am in story, and that's one of the things that when you ask me about my military scuba diver, experience, that's really sort of the essence of who I am. Am I able to kind of go into the story, and that might help you to understand that, or do you want me just to?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, good.
It's all
Oh, you
yours.
got your coffee going.
I've got my tea, and I'm just going to
You
sit
got
here
your
and
tea.
listen. You take it away.
Okay, once upon a time. Um, So yeah, to give you a little bit of background as to who I am, and it's interesting because I just finished doing two different women's retreats. I finished the last one last night, and so I am a little bit tired today, and tired yet inspired by listening to all of these women and their stories of resilience. So this is very timely. So one of the things that I talk about in my when I am talking about myself, I always introduce myself as saying, okay, I'm Ann-Marie Flinn. Here's some of the sort of the accolades about me. I'm Atlantic Canada's very first female military scuba diver. I spent a 30-year corporate a career with a Fortune 100 company. I have an amazing family, yada yada yada, and I'm also now a business owner of my own organization. And then what I do is I always turn the page and I say, and this is also me. And I show a picture of myself where I am, a real picture of me as a child. And if you take a look at the child's eyes, you can see fear and loneliness and insecurity in that child's eyes. And what I say to them is that this is also me. This is the child that experienced abuse. This is the child that experienced trauma. This is the child that experiences, dyslexia and trouble reading and so on. And what I always say to women is that there's so many other dimensions than what we may see on a filtered Facebook page or on Instagram picture. And I always say both are true. So how do we say, this is me in terms of, some of my successes, and this is also me. And how can I be with both? And to get into the story around my military scuba diving career, or when I was a military scuba diver, back when I was about 20 or 21, I was in the military, and I really didn't enjoy my job. I was kind of just paper pushing and that type of thing. And so I saw a sign or a posting for to become a military scuba diver. And so I thought this is kind of cool. I think I'll give it a try. And after I signed up, I realized that if I did complete this course, I'll be Atlantic Canada's very first female military scuba diver. So now that really got me excited. So I signed up, and what I didn't tell them is that I'm claustrophobic and I don't really like the water. And I thought that can't be too much of a problem. So throughout my time taking this course, I probably got threatened, to be kicked off probably 3 or 4 times because of the fear that was showing up. The fear of the water, thanks to my brothers, because they used to always play the Jaws theme whenever I touched a body of water. Fear of being in small places, I think again because of my brothers. So all of these fears kept continually showing up when I was taking this course. And at the same time, I also had this goal is that, this goal of still being Atlantic Canada's very first female military scuba diver is helping me push through that fear, helping me push through that discomfort, and helping me get to the other side. And so every time I was faced with this adversity of, this fear, how am I going to push through it? And then, like I said, what I continue to do is look at the end in mind, think of the end in mind. And I've said this in keynotes, and I've said this when I've worked with organizations and women. This isn't about, waiting till I'm fearless to do something that I'm really passionate about. It's about how do I fear less? How do I step into that, vortex of discomfort and continue pushing forward? So, very thankfully, I did continue to push forward, and I did become Atlantic Canada's very first female military scuba diver. I actually have my badge right here. Show you. I'm still very proud of it. So there it is. Ta-da!
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I still keep that up on my pegboard as a reminder every time I'm doing something very, scary, that how I remember that I was able to push through and still push through the fear.
Well, and that's was that also your first kind of introductory into strength training and lung and all of that? Because I know that my sister's husband was a merchant marine for years, deep dive, recovery, things like that. And
Mhm.
what he had to go through physically to be able to do that was like it's like I don't know, I guess it would be like running a 10K, with 50 pounds of equipment on you, right? You just like it's pretty intense. Is that
Yeah.
where some of that, because you said fear less, I like that. Is that where some of this champion mindset started triggering in you? Can you walk us through a little bit some of those things that you hit head on when you had to move from, fearing to fearing less?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I think so much about, my father and some of the things that he would say to me whenever I was faced with fear. And one of the things he always said was, "Don't let the bees grind you down." I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
allowed to say anything
No,
beyond that. Um,
it's
so don't let them grind you down. In other words, this is going to be a choice now. The choice is, where am I going to continue? Am I going to stay in this vortex of discomfort, or am I going to get to the next? Am I just going to push through it? And so one of the things that I said in my women's retreat is there's 4 levels of learning. The first level is like you just don't know what you don't know. So I don't know what to expect with this divers course. So I don't know what I don't know. And so I go in blindly. And then all of a sudden I get into the divers course. It's like, holy crap, I now know that I don't know something. I now know that I don't know how much, you know, how much we're going to be running, how much we're going to be swimming, how much we're going to be diving, how many 300 push-ups are going to feel like, and so on. And then that's where that vortex of discomfort comes in. And this is where the inner critic can either play or your inner champion can take over. And so when the inner critic shows up, they're going to start to say, "No, Anne-Marie, all I want you to do is just stay complacent and stay right here and stay safe." And then the inner champion can say, "Don't let the, what's grind you down, and just keep pushing through this." And so going through that vortex of discomfort gets you to the other side and all of a sudden it's like ahas. I have tons of ahas from all these tadas that I had in that vortex of discomfort. And from there, it's like, now I know that I know stuff. And then from there, all of a sudden, after practice and resilience and so on, I don't even know that I know this anymore. It's just a part of who I am. So
the
yeah.
I love that, the inner critic or champion pick, right? You pick which path.
Mhm,
We're faced every day with the challenge, and every day we make a choice,
mhm.
and every time we reap the consequence, be it positive or negative, right?
Right. Yeah,
Consequence.
exactly.
And what's fascinating is I believe I am a uniquely not unique. I believe I'm a very average female. I come from born in a trailer park in Kansas, swear to God. Single wide. And I have very average education, but what I do is I work to be more than the sum
Mhm,
of what society says I am.
mhm,
So, and I find that I want to go back before real quickly so you can weave this into the story of everything of what you do. So uh you talked about abuse, you talked about dyslexia. Just so you know, my husband is dyslexic and my daughter is dyslexic, so we love Jasper in this house. Jasper has been such a godsend. Totally leveled the playing field. You talked about, siblings and the challenges around siblings. So there's so many components that I think so many people can relate to, especially
mhm,
women, when we have a quarter of women are reported to have some sort of abuse before the age of 18, and that's what's reported. So the reality is it's probably 50% are walking around with this shame and blame thing going on all the time, that's
yeah.
sabotaging how amazing they could build their lives, how they could find maybe that extra $500 or walk that extra 5 blocks. So I would love for you to share with us what you do, and when you're sharing this, if you could give us an actionable step, one thing or 3 things that we could literally implement today that don't require a ton of money, that don't require, you know, going and studying with the Buddhist monks and that big aha moment, that are really simple things to be able to
Mhm,
make our life that much closer to the next level, to that I now know level.
mhm. Well, I think the biggest thing, and again, in terms of what I do, this is a lot of the work that I do when I work with organizations, when I work with individuals. when I've worked with athletes. Is like, again, what is the mindset that we are, what is the internal culture that we are believing that is either helping us move forward or holding us back? And sometimes that can be really unconscious. So a lot of the work that I do around um, this healthy mindset or this champion mindset is just even noticing and naming what it is that is the current belief system. So think about, like if you ever remember those old telephone operators, and they have, a big telephone wires, and they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing this, right? So every time there's information, it gets plugged in, and then there's more information and that gets plugged in, and that becomes our script, that becomes our belief system, whether it be an organizational culture, whether it be a culture that we were raised in, just like with you, being from your background, me being from my background. We have this script, and we get to choose from there. Well, sorry, let me back up. Sometimes it becomes very unconscious, it feels like our normal, because that's how we were wired. Then all of a sudden we get into an area where maybe there's a separate or a different culture that feels a little bit more like us, and we're wanting to move further towards that. And that can be very scary, because all of a sudden we have to start to rewire excuse me, how we're set up. And so I always say, first of all, is embrace the 1%. Instead of taking all those wires out and trying to rewire everything around us and everything within us, try one. Look at one. Just notice and name one thing that you get to get curious about, and get the support and get the help to help you move that wire to a wire that's serving you, to a plug that's serving you. So a couple of things that I say when I work again with organizations, and with individuals, start looking at what's the self-talk that might be limiting us to move forward. So for instance, with you, Kim, it's like one of the things you said, there was this, I was raised in this particular environment, and my goal is to be more than what maybe people have think that I should be, or whatever. And I always say is like, let's not discount what it is our normal was for us. So in other words, we get to say I am. And everything after the words I am is going to be the belief system. So I can easily say I am at best a C student. I am someone that has trouble reading. I am someone that has experienced trauma. I am this, I am X, Y, Z. I am that. So it's not about discounting that. It's like, okay, that's true. And I'm so much more.
Yeah.
So what is the so much more that we can also believe in? And that's where the inner champion really starts to play a really positive role in our life. Is that how can we just say, instead of just, ignoring it or trying to pretend that never happened, it's like, okay, I am that, I am these adversities, and I'm so much more. So what's the dimensions? What's the depth that we can believe in? So that's one. The
Yeah.
other thing too is, even understanding what is some of the other belief systems that we have. How do we actually stop ourselves without even realizing we are? Well, one of the things that I've talked about, and I did this in the retreat, is what about if we say, okay, I want to do this really great podcast with Kim, but I'm really tired because I've been up since 3 this morning. Or I want to become Atlantic Canada's very first female military scuba diver, but I'm claustrophobic and I'm not a big fan of the water. What if I was to switch that and say, okay, both might be true. What if I were to say, I'm claustrophobic, I'm not a big fan of the water, and I'm going to become Atlantic Canada's very first female military scuba diver. I've been up since 3 a.m. and I can hardly wait to sit down and talk with Kim Hayden in this amazing podcast.
I heard there was a school, I think it was down in Massachusetts, or yeah, I think it was Boston. Um, the school did this Yeti campaign. And I love this
Mhm.
because I tell people I am not tech intuitive, yet I can learn until the system becomes intuitive, right?
Mhm.
I know what I'm good at. And I love that Yeti, yet I can. yet I can. I'm still this side of the dirt. As long as I'm this side of the dirt and I have my faculties about me, right? I can learn. I can learn. I
Hmm.
don't have to. I don't have to um, I don't have to live within the limited beliefs, right? Of what
Yeah.
this is the instruction package. This is the box of cereal I came in, and we can't do anything with it. Basically, we're kind of like, think about oatmeal, right? Oatmeal is 101 different things. Yet on its own, it's just an oat, and it's probably not overly tasty. I've never actually eaten just an oat on its own, but it
Hmm.
can become oatmeal cookies. It can become, I don't know. There was a restaurant in Toronto called the Movenpick, and they had
Oh, I love the
oh,
Movenpick.
yes. What is it? What is that called? Where it's the oats and the berries and the cream, and oh my gosh, it is like one of the best.
Heaven. I think they call it heaven. That's what I
Yes.
call it.
So when we look at it, one of the things that you mentioned a little bit earlier, the two sides of the coin, and you mentioned social media. This is one of the spaces that because even though this is a form of um, social media in its what we consider its core space, so Instagram,
Mhm,
Facebook, those two primarily can cause anxiety for a lot of women and a lot of people, and that they feel less than because, as you had mentioned, there are two sides to the coin. And when we look at social media, we're only seeing the sizzle reel, we're only seeing the highlight reel. um, and I know that it is a piece of our business now. We don't have a way around it. For most people, unless you are in a strict kind of corporate America or social works position, and social
mhm,
media is not allowed. But if
mhm.
you're anything else, social media is part of it. What are some tactics that when you're working with specifically women who are moving into that championship mindset, and yet when they activate social media can activate them. Have you ever encountered this? Do you ever go through and like
Mhm.
give strategies for them to help navigate so it becomes the tool it's supposed to be, not the defining factor of your emotional well-being for the day? So, is there
Yeah.
anything you can share with us on that? Because this is a big one that I encounter in talking with women. It's a really hard one.
Well, yeah, and it's actually, and you're right, and you said, women and, all genders in this world,
Yeah.
because I actually did a talk with this large accounting firm last week, and it was about overcoming unhealthy perfectionism. And one of the things that I talk about is the comparison theory. So if you think about social media, like how often are we comparing ourselves on to what we see on social media? And this is what can be so limiting to so many of us. And I mean, I'm an international athlete, or, I retired from it a couple of years ago, but I was also, in a sport where I was judged, based on my physique, based on wearing this little itty bitty suit on stage and having people literally judge me. And this is what happens every day when we post ourselves on social media. So then what happens? Well, then we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have all these tools that puts filters on, and then we have filters, and then all of a sudden our eyes are bigger, our lips are redder, whatever the case may be. So then all of a sudden we now see what we think is a reality. And when I did this talk with this large accounting firm about overcoming unhealthy perfectionism, I showed them a picture of this beautiful woman with this, perfect little child, and it only showed like this area here. And when I said to them, I was like, "What do you see?" They see, we see perfection. We see this beautiful family. We see this, we see that. It's like, exactly. And then I blew up the picture, and then underneath all of that was like her pants were all messy. There was a mess all over the floor. There was, reality. There was chaos. And I said, this is also her. This is the yes and. And so, in other words, what do we want to believe? and what is the belief system that we are bringing into social media that could potentially be limiting us. So, in other words, know that there's more to the story than what we see on social media. And there's also is like, how do we bring our authenticity into social media and give permission for others to also bring in their authenticity without the filters, without the 1,001 pictures before you get that right selfie and so
Yeah.
on.
And see, I'm bad. I am like the I'm like the worst person in media in the sense that I'm like, just grab a picture, any picture. I don't care. When you see a picture of me out there, it really is, you know what? If it's good enough, it's good enough. I'm not here. My physique is, that's not part of my job. So they
Mhm.
try and go, and it's always like hard to grab a picture of me because I move so fast. So they pretty much have given up on
Yeah,
professional photo shoots and just grab it with their phone whenever they can. Um, I'd like
yeah.
to go into a story of resilience because I believe that modeling stories is how so many of us learn and learn well. Is that we look at leaders within a story that we identify with. Uh, Anne-Marie,
Mhm.
are you open to sharing a moment of resilience, something that was really hard for you that without having resiliency in that moment, you would not be having this conversation right now?
Yeah, well, and again, I can go back to getting a little bit more in depth with the scuba diving story because there's so much more that happened after the scuba diving story. So let me just give you one example of, kind of how I feel the fear and did it anyway through the scuba diving story, and then what the trajectory was after that. So for instance, so before I even got onto the course, I had to take all of these, undergo all these different tests. And one of the tests was to go into a decompression chamber to, see if I was able to withstand the pressure and decompression and everything. So anyway, instead of there was a 3-man decompression chamber, and there was 5 of us in it, 4 men and me. And how you get into this decompression chamber is basically just through this like porthole. So they open it up like this, and they put you in. They just have these little tiny porthole windows like this. So anyway, I could feel myself going in and then coming out. And then I was going in and I was coming out. And I did this probably 3 or 4 times until finally someone said, Moffat, which is my maiden name. They said, Moffat, are you claustrophobic? Because if you are, you can't go on this course. Well, then again, I started to think about what's my goal? What's my end state? What's my desired outcome? To become Atlantic Canada's very first female military scuba diver. And of course, I got a little bit stubborn as well, thanks to my family, my father. And I went in, and I finally went in. And I don't know who that man was that was sitting beside me, but I remember holding onto his hand for dear life. And yet I made it through, which got me onto the course. And I had 2 other incredible stories. I know we just don't have time to do this. Anyway, if I didn't go into this decompression chamber, I never would have gotten onto the course. I got onto the course, I passed, I became, the first female military scuba diver in Atlantic Canada. And then from there, I got onto this trajectory. And that trajectory was got onto, uh, became a military scuba diver for a period of time. I was rather petite. I had a hard time carrying equipment around. So then I started going to the gym and started pumping iron. And I was realizing it's like whenever I pump iron, it's like I can sculpt my body a certain way. And that fascinated me. So that got me into the bodybuilding world. And then because of the bodybuilding world, I met my boyfriend, now husband. And I also was able to talk about some of the resilience and talk about some of the leadership skills and the mindset, which got me hired on with the Fortune 100 company. And then because of taking this scuba divers course and I started competing in bodybuilding. I then got I became a world champion. I was ranked third in the world. And then I went to Spain a couple of years ago and I was ranked in the top 10 out of like hundreds of people. So I always say that if I chose to listen to my fear, And if I chose to not show resilience or not embody resilience, I wonder if I'd be speaking to you right now, because I don't know if I would have had this same trajectory.
Had the same foundation piece. It's, and
Exactly.
it's never too late. It is never too late. We had started here in Calgary a, 70 over 70 new entrepreneurs group just started. It's like, so these are
Mm,
people who have worked corporate jobs their entire life, and at over 70 they're re-entering. And we're seeing a lot of shift when we look at age, we're seeing a lot of shift. And um I think work like yours is imperative, because when you feel your own power within and you feel
mhm,
strong within, you can heal the visions, those ruptures that have happened within your life that you never felt
mhm,
solid enough to, or strong enough to deal with. And I think that it's really incredible to watch people who are over 50 and over 60 and over 70 starting to really embrace a lot of what our 30-year-olds have grown up with them. So you talk about the coaching, the seminars, the retreats that you do. Um, what is the one time, like, is there one person or one moment in this journey of leading people to help find their champion mindset that really sticks with you and to this day kind of makes you go, if nothing else happened in my world, that was worth it?
mm. Wow, there's so many that I can think of. Um, I can just think of someone recently, because again, I always say that every time I see that aha moment in a client or in an organization, I feel like I won $1 million.
Yeah,
And it was so interesting. I had this one male client come to me and wanted to experience a change. And it was so interesting because the way this individual had previously strived to create change was never sustainable. So he says, okay, all I want to do is I just want to do this. I want to, like, I got this list and it was like complicated. It was overwhelming and it was unsustainable. So I said, why don't we just step back and why don't we just start embracing 1%? What's the 1% that we can work on right now? And what I've noticed, so he's been my client now for less than a year. And the transformation that I see, like I get emotional, the transformation that I see, physical, mental, emotional, and inspirational is overwhelming. This man has changed his life incredibly. And every time I talk to him every 2 weeks, and every time I see him, I see how he's evolving, and he's gone through that vortex of discomfort. He believed that he could champion his mindset, and he got rid of all the garbage that overwhelmed him. The do. It's like, let's just focus on being. And because of that, he's
absolutely.
completely changed his life.
And I totally agree. Like, I get personally so much pleasure out of watching other people excel. And it
Hmm.
just makes me, I
Yeah.
love, I have a girlfriend who has, she's actually a girlfriend of mine. She was my brand strategist on a brand that we actually took to $6 million. So she's pretty darn good at what she does. But I met her because I love roller derby, and I would go to the roller derby. I can't do roller derby. I have a bleeding disorder and two broken ankles, in my youth. So doing it's not an option, but boy, I love to go and listen to crowd. And there's a move called the whip. And the whip is when the person in the front puts their foot
Oh, and
or their hand
yeah.
back and they whip that person forward. And that is my goal. I want to be your whip. I want to know that, and this is I think you can see truly the people like yourself that are stepping out in front with a purpose that is authentic, because you can see it in the pride when they see other people whip past them with that momentum and that excitement, and they're going to cross that finish line.
Yeah.
So I get you. I get you, Anne-Marie. I totally get you. I think what you're doing is awesome. I think what you're doing is
Thank
awesome.
you.
You have a real quickly before we move on to how we can find you. You have a your champions uh, foundation. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? So, you are the president and founder of the Champion Foundational Change Agency. Can you walk
Mhm.
me through that just a little bit of how does somebody engage and what can they expect?
Mm. Yeah, so I always say, think of me as your agency for all things wellness and well-being. So what my agency does is really, it's all about how do we how do we sort of break open the culture and inject wellness and well-being, whether that be physical, mental, or emotional well-being. So people in organizations feel like they're thriving, they feel like they're being productive, they're feeling like they're actually moving forward with innovate with authenticity, which leads to creativity, which leads to innovation. So that's a lot of the work that I do. So let's just say, again, an organization comes in and says, okay, Anne-Marie, we're struggling here. I'm seeing a lot of burnout. I'm seeing a lot of mental unwellness. I really need to help inspire my organization so we can continue to grow and move forward. So I would come in, I would work with the organization. We would do, really, I really do a deep dive into understanding what the current culture is. And then from there, I would either, I'd bring in myself, and if I didn't have that skill set, I would bring in one of my associates to work on the wellness and well-being of that organization. And like I said, I do this with individuals as well. Um, what's your question again? Just to make sure
The
I'm
second part
following
was,
you.
and what is the transformation for the individual? What is the benefit for the individual or the company?
Yeah. So think about it this way, that what my goal is to create a solid foundation with physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And I give you tools, which are like the skills to help you build that foundation. And those skills helps you move towards your desired outcome, which helps create that solid foundation. And when you have that solid foundation, it helps you maintain that desired outcome. So if you look on my website, there's like this circle that goes this way. So the tools will help, the skills will help you get to that solid foundation. A solid foundation can help you with building on the tools, which helps you
Yep.
create that desired outcome.
You just got to start. That's at the end of
You
the
just
day,
got to
that's the
start.
hardest thing is getting started, getting that momentum going. What is a book
Yeah.
that you recommend that we should all read?
Well, for me, what I found very, very transformative for myself is it's called The Body Keeps the Score. And that's by Vanderkalk. Bender Vanderkalk. And so it's all about trauma and how when we start try to hide and suppress and keep all of those insecurities down, which hides our authenticity, which hides our true authentic self, the body keeps the score. In other words, we think we're doing the right thing by burying all of this stuff and not showing up as our true authentic self. And the reality is that there's so many illnesses and there's so much mental health issues because of us holding our authentic self down. And again, also from a trauma perspective as well, and how it holds us down. And I found it was when I read it, there was so many sort of purges for myself and aha moments like, holy crap, I had no idea that I was holding this back, I was holding that back. And it gave me a lot of permission to address some of the trauma that I had in my life. And then I actually felt even healthier mentally, physically, and emotionally because I was able to kind of address it and move forward.
Excellent. And we can all learn from those around us. That's why I always ask about the book because,
Hmm.
there's a wealth of knowledge out there. It's just if you want to embrace it. So,
Yes.
where
Yeah.
can people find you, Anne Marie? Can you go through your socials
Uh,
for us?
yeah. Well, my website is my big, that's where a lot of information is on any events that I have, any retreats that I have. And it's changechamp.ca is my website. And if you want to go on Facebook, it's Champion Foundational Change Agency. And or you could just look up Ann-Marie Flinn, and it's the same on LinkedIn. I typically use those two platforms
Yeah.
for communication. Instagram is Change Champ 66, and I have a upside potential in on Instagram. And yeah, so those are sort of the main platforms. On my website, you'll see any events coming up. There'll be like a little, you know, ticker tape thing that'll show some of the events. I just finished going through a whole bunch of events over the last 5, 6 weeks. There's going to be more retreats coming up. There's going to be working on an International Women's Day Leadership Summit starting March the 8th, and location is TBA. It'll be somewhere here in Nova Scotia, and that'll be an incredible opportunity for women in leadership to grow, connect, and bring out even more of their authenticity.
Well, and if you have not been to Nova Scotia, I've actually been, and it's really a cool place to visit.
Mhm.
So you get to tick two things off your bucket list, right? Little time invested in yourself, learn a bit about yourself, and explore something that is a place that's truly beautiful.
Yes.
Um, this is the point where I would love for you to share a quote with us. Anything that somebody can write on their bathroom mirror or say to themselves when they're having a struggle.
Yeah. So I sign off on most of my emails with this, and it's to the champion in you. And the champion's going to mean something different for everybody. And what I can tell you is that everybody has one, at least one. And if you were to put that on your mirror and look at it every day and say to yourself, to the champion in you, what does
Amazing.
that give you permission to do and to be when you see the champion in you?
That is awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today, Anne Marie. This is what a great way to start the day, folks. Like, get up and fill your head with permission to be the champion. Because we're giving it to you right now. You got the permission to
Exactly.
go be the best you that you know how to be. And if you need to level up, find Anne Marie, level up, go that next level because you got it in you. So this is it for Kim Talks Resilience today. I'm your host, Kim Hayden. Now, if you feel that your resiliency is ever lagging, I want you to listen and lean into our resilient community. You can go to resilientgift.com. Again, that's resilientgift.com and just log in for free. There is no charge. There will never be a sneaky renewal fee. This is literally where we just let you know when the next magazine is out, when the next podcasts are coming up, and when we're doing any of our virtual live summits. So, where we invite these amazing speakers to come and give us a bit more of who they are and what they do. So, again, I thank you for your time. And as Anne Marie has said, be the champion in you. We give you permission today. Go be a champion.